So this is a video response to Phoneybeetlemaniacxs' video, 5 questions for atheists and theists, and an admission. It's a throwback to years ago when we all used to have these 5 questions for people stuff, but I'll bite. Here we go. What would convince you that a creator being exists / doesn't exist? If there is nothing, why or why not? There's almost nothing for me. And that would be because most anything that would be impressive and miraculous could also be a hallucination, or somebody doing sleight of hand, performing magic tricks. There's all sorts of magicians in the world that perform visual tricks that had you not paid for a ticket to be entertained by an illusionist, you might be fooled by them. So, for me, the be-all, end-all of God proving himself to exist. Okay, here we go. I'm going to ask right now, God, if you're out there, can you just flip a switch in my head and make me a believer? And I asked that in all earnestness, and nothing happened. And if he ever did just flip that switch and make me a believer, then that would be good enough for me. Now, it doesn't happen every time I try, but it's only verifiable and validatable until it doesn't work, I guess. But it hasn't worked at all. Number 2. What informs your ethic model? I think you mean ethical. Jesus is excluded for Christians if there is anything but Jesus. Well, as not a Christian, I still think that Jesus was a pretty cool guy, except for the whole casting sinners into a lake of fire stuff, and what he did to the fig tree. That was wrong. But he was a pretty good improvement on other moral models of the time. And I think that I respect him, or the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, as they are collected and told as though this person was all just Jesus and not, based on other stories, but, the collections of stories that are told about Jesus. I respect those teachings in there, I think, a lot more than some Christians do. I rather think of him as like a socialist hippie Jew, and some people tend to make Jesus be whatever it is that they want him to be, and especially they want him to be a meanie, who would just cut off the poor from everything and just let people die because our money is our money, and Jesus would want us to be able to keep our money and use our money to be able to keep other people from having money and make more money for us. And, that's not Jesus to me, and I don't think it's theft to destroy systems of money that would do that. I think it's more like in line with Jesus' teachings to, flip over tables where money changing is taking place that is hurtful to people. So, yeah, I feel like Jesus is a good role model if you understand what he was doing, and you don't just start off with the premise that whatever I'm doing, of course, Jesus probably agrees with. Again, except for the whole casting people into a lake of fire. But as far as what informs my ethical model, besides Jesus as a non-believer. I think I'm on team people, and whatever's best for people, both now and as a long-term goal, whatever's best for people, I'm more down with. You need to make decisions that are going to be better for people. Who best embodies the morals that you follow? Someone for the last century alive, preferably. I've been thinking about this recently because I'm very sad to see that he's quitting a show that I've watched for like 15 years. But I think Jon Stewart, actually, he embodies the goals and morals that I like to follow, as far as you can disagree with someone and you can make jokes about them, but nobody dies. No one's ever going to take action to hurt someone by stoning them or shooting them or anything if you're a follower of the Jon Stewart model of disagreement. You might make fun of ridiculous ideas. You're always going to come away with laughs, but everyone's welcome at the table to discuss things with the understanding that nobody is going to die after discussing them. In fact, I even have a nice little Jon Stewart for President pin. This is back from '08. You can see right there. Anyways, next question. Which YouTuber would you wish to convert to your point of view, Christian to atheist, atheist to Christian? I don't know of any Christians that I would want to just convert to atheism without coming to that conclusion on their own. I don't think that it does any good to make an atheist who is unexamined in himself. And there are a lot of them out there that are just atheists who don't know why. I think it's a good idea to really look at why you don't believe things. So, snapping my finger, I really don't want anyone to become an atheist, especially not the type that would gain tens of thousands of subscribers on YouTube and not even know why, they are that way, and not really be a good representation of the rest of us. But, if I could, I would probably vote Bionic Dance off the island or off my planet, and I would want her to be, side by side with the Christian dogmatic people that are kind of the parallel to her dogma. And there's one person in particular, Brian J. 1962, who I think I would like him to come to my point of view of it being better for people to know your actual stance rather than keep it secret and just participate in discussions. Because I feel like it empowers a lot of people to know what I believe and know that I'm here, and some of them believe similarly to me, and they, they're empowered by that. And I think that Brian's actual point of view, if it were known to people, might empower other people who had that persuasion. And the last question that Phoneybeetlemaniacxs had was, if you could live in any period of time, what would it be and why? This is more, I guess, to some of the personal feelings I've had, especially the last 3 or 4 years. Many different movements have fed into this idea, but I wish I could live in a period of time where doing what you're supposed to do would actually pay off. And what I mean by that is there have been debates in society about the efficacy of getting a higher education, and how it used to be that you would make millions of dollars more than your high school grad counterpart if you just got a bachelor's degree. At the end of both of your lives, you could look back and say, oh, look, if I had only gotten a bachelor's degree, if I had only gotten a high school diploma, I would be making this much, and since I have a bachelor's degree, I make this much. And it is now true that there are some general studies associate's degrees whereby just getting that, a little technical degree, not even getting a bachelor's, just these little certificates can actually make you more money than getting a PhD in other fields. Because the way the world has kind of changed its importance for certain fields, it's basically turned into, if you're not willing to get your hands dirty and work, you don't get money, because there is a glut of people who all want office jobs, who all want to live the easy life, and so they go and get degrees in management or business management, all of the humanities, the social sciences. These people got these degrees because they didn't want to be plumbers. They didn't want to be pipe fitters. They didn't want to be electricians. They didn't want to be anything that does hard labor. They didn't want to be a carpenter. And now the world kind of incentivizes getting a trade rather than getting a higher education. And I wish that I could live in that period of time where my own education were valued a little bit more than having a trade. And it's not that I want to just roll back the clock 30, 40 years and live in that time period. I actually wish that time period was in the future. Here I am looking at even more higher education, and I really want it to pay off. But a lot of people have seen that, if you only get a certain level of higher education, it doesn't pay off, so let's go to the next level. And by the time I get there, there might be a glut of people that have master's degrees and PhDs and specialties after a PhD. They might create something better than a PhD by the time I get it. And I really don't want to think about, what life would be like if everyone had a PhD plus and your life is spent learning for more years than you actually perform the job that you learned to do. When your years of schooling is longer than the amount of career time you can have before you have to retire. That's what I don't want to get to. And I feel like that's what we're headed towards in the near future, in the next 10, 20 years. It used to be that a registered nurse could have just an associate's degree, and many hospitals do not allow that anymore. Maybe many states have tightened the restrictions on who can have that license, and unless they are grandfather or grandmothered in, people now are required to have a bachelor's degree to become a registered nurse. And the direction that they're heading is that they are next going to require a master's degree to be a nurse, and that's probably going to happen in a decade or two. So the same job that somebody used to be able to do with just a certificate got turned into an associate's, then a bachelor's. Now it's going to be a master's pretty soon. And they're still going to be checking people's temperature, checking their vital signs, hanging banana bags, and wiping people's asses. You know, they're still going to be doing that same job that they have been doing, and it hasn't gotten more technical. It's gotten less technical. They have machines that tell them the answer now. There's less math that they actually do on the job. The job is more about running around more and handling a larger patient load and being expected to handle more patients than previously was acceptable. But that they are basically being required to have the same credentials that doctors used to have 50 years ago, that really doesn't sit well with me, you know. And it's because we buy into that notion that if we get an education, at the end of that, we're going to get a higher pay. You know, that payout is going to happen. And so many people buy into that it creates a glut of people who are educated but can't find that paying job that they expected to find. And part of it is economics, where economies have been manipulated and nobody's making any money except for the people who have money, you know. And if you could get into a job where you could actually save some money, then you could actually quit on that company. So companies only like to pay enough to keep you strung along for the rest of your life. And if I could live in a period of time, you know, I know this was not the case 50 years ago, but I want it to be not the case in the future. So I'm going to say a more utopian future where education brings you rewards. Okay, that's probably longer than the video he made just asking the questions, so I'll cut it off here. Link in the description box to his original questions so that you can post your responses to him yourself.